Welcome to Insights in Touch, the podcast where industry insight meets meaningful conversation. Hosted by Kristin Thorne, this series, presented by iFraud Foundation, explores the real issues facing the property and casualty insurance world. It's the pulse of an industry under pressure and the voices working to protect its future. Stay informed, stay connected, stay in touch. Now, here's your host, Kristin Thorne.
Now on the Insights in Touch podcast, the man, Kirk Willis, CEO of the Willis Law Group. Kirk, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kristin. You do me way too much of a favor by introducing me that way. You are the person that got this thing started, so I pay homage to you.
Well, thank you. You're keeping it going for sure in all sorts of directions. And I want to ask you first, when you first take me through how you got involved with this, what your strategy has been up to this point, and your hopes. Kind of bring me through the whole picture here.
It's really kind of unusual. I received a phone call from Don Orlando, who was head of litigation at Tradesman, asking if I had the stomach to pursue lawyers and doctors who he believed were engaging in fraudulent behavior. I think that we all have engaged or at least known someone or a group of lawyers who've engaged in fraudulent behavior. But back in many, many years ago, it wasn't that significant. It was 10,000 here, 20,000 here, a little overtreatment there. And those are things you can kind of say, listen, that's the price of doing business as an insurance company. That's the price of doing business as a defense lawyer. You deal with that, you move on, you put a red flag near the name of the lawyer or the doctors that are engaging in such behavior, and you just know that that's the price of doing business. But this behavior was so egregious that I think it got tradesmen's initial ire up, and they started to look at alternatives. We can either continue to lay down, or we could start to fight this thing. I think after tradesmen went through the numbers again and again, they realized that they probably would be in bankruptcy after a 5-year process. And that's certainly not what you sign up for as a CEO or owner of a business. So I think that when they start talking to me, this was something that was close to my heart because I was involved in a couple of matters here in Texas that we successfully defended and then prosecuted matters that dealt with unscrupulous behavior from a standpoint of owners of firms and or owners of surgical centers. So I was familiar with the process itself. And with that, we knew where to start, where to go. But as we started to review files for the client, we realized that there were probably more files that were had fraudulent behavior in it than did. And that started to really pique the curiosity of me and several of my partners, and we started to engage and dig deep.
What has been the strategy here, without giving it away? But what have you're now up to how many RICO suits?
13 that we have filed. We have another 5 ready to go. We are just awaiting client approval of same.
Your team just works incredibly hard, I imagine.
So
Tell me about, this is so much work. A RICO suit, I think, unlike any other suit, is incredibly involved. And tell me about how your team works. How do they tackle this? And also, at this point, has it become the type of thing that we kind of know with this fraud? It's kind of on repeat. So is it a type of thing that you've been able, once you learn so much about it, you can use that for the next RICO?
That is how it kind of started. And we have put together, I think, one of the best RICO teams that you could ever imagine in the nation. With RICO lawsuits, you have to do a tremendous amount of investigative work. So it takes someone with an eye, an ear, a nose, all 5 senses, and then double down on those senses to dig around. Don't just look at the obvious, but ask the question behind the question. Look at the medical records and ask why. Look at the the documents that forms the organizations or the corporations that are behind the surgical centers and ask, why is that relationship so close with the plaintiff's attorney? Why is that doctor who happens to be a cousin of the plaintiff's attorney, why does he own an operation and operate rather a funding company? So as we got deeper and deeper into this case, we realized that we needed experts. We're not amateurs here. So what we did was, we are all mechanics, we're all lawyers, but some of the lawyers specialize in different areas. For instance, we have a former FBI 20 plus years of experience investigator and a SAC officer. I guess they call it
Agent
special
in
agent
charge.
charge.
Yeah.
And so that guy knows exactly what the federal government needs in order to at least look at cases of this nature. We are not quote unquote U.S. attorneys or prosecutors, although we have several of them on staff now. But we know that they require certain things to do their jobs, and we try to help them to make their jobs easier. It's a collaboration. They welcome the collaboration, and it's a collaboration, and we were able to help them in that regard. So I left off with the FBI agent, but we also have on our staff a CIA agent, or at least access to his team, a trained CIA agent who helps us with all of the all of the international concerns that are out there. This is not your normal 25 family ring. This thing has 90 to 100, at least 90 to 100 doctors who are involved, even more attorneys, what I like to call the head of the snake, that are involved in this, funding companies, lawyers who have not been successful in the practice of law, starting funding companies, putting those funding companies in the law firms where the lawyers actually occupy the building, and they work side by side, hand in glove, as William Clay, one of my guys, would say, hand in glove with the attorneys. And they all have muscle that they rely on. And we're learning that there are a number of gangs affiliations that are involved as well.
We all want to see, I get this question a lot. Why is law enforcement not doing more? Why are we not hearing from the attorney generals? Why, what is your take on that? Is it all political? Is it some political? Is it also just the scale of this fraud?
I like that question, Christian. I think that the scale of the fraud has something to do with it, but I think the answer is more simple than that. And I don't know if you're a religious person or not. I happen to be.
I
And there's
am.
a saying in our church that God works on his own time. And so I think that the federal government, in many, many ways, these investigators work on their own time. You know why? They want to get it right. They're not going to depend on Kirk Willis's investigation. It's just going to point them in a direction. They then will confirm and reconfirm and that what they're seeing is actually right. I want them to do that. I want them to take their time, examine, re-examine, check my paper, check it. I want you to know beyond any shadow of a doubt, when you look at the evidence that I'm helping you with and presenting to you, or at least alerting you to suspect personnel, that you're going to be comfortable as our enforcement and law enforcement arms. You're comfortable with the decision and the direction you're going. So please do a thorough job. We would like for you to do it quicker because it will help our clients, but I want them to be right.
Totally. These RICO cases, so it's been slow going, and I think we get this question a lot too. What's happening? We know that one of the judges for the Subin case just came back, and tradesmen had to file an amendment to that and sort of clarify things for the judge and make sure that the judge kind of understood the way the corporate structure exists. Do you feel these are moving in at the judicial level too slowly? Are you surprised at that? Look, we all want things to go faster, but is there any concerns there for you with how slowly we're just not hearing from the courts on these cases?
As a former prosecutor myself, I know how slowly the wheels of justice can turn. And while it may appear to be slow for us, it's actually moving at a pretty fair rate or pace, if you will, for the federal government. The one thing about the federal government, they don't get in a hurry for anyone, except for, I guess, the president, the Senate, the
Yes,
House.
yes,
They
yes,
probably get in a hurry for those folks. But
yes.
as it relates to the citizenry, they don't necessarily move at our pace. They move at their own. And again, I like to see that they get it right. It may say something that they're taking their time in doing it, but I'm okay with that process.
What what is your hope?
My hope is that folks who are taking advantage of the migrants, taking advantage of you and me as citizens, will get their just desert. And to me, that is jail time if you are breaking the law. So in my instance, I would like to be able to say that my clients made a positive move in hiring my law firm to at least lay out the case in such a way that, number one, a civil jury will find that, yes, you have proven your burden. Yes, this is a civil RICO relative to the elements that were out there and relative to the evidence that you have put together and the evidence that you have clearly proven to this jury. And so as a result, we will get money damages 3 times the legal damages, the legal expenses, that is, I guess, my bill, and then treble damages on top of that, attorney's fees. So it is a substantial amount of money that could be recovered. So that is my hope, that my clients who have gone out on that proverbial limb will at least collect their resources back to put back into their company. The second prong of that is when you violate oaths, you have to stand for that violation. You have to be an account of that violation. And what I mean by that is, I don't know that everyone under the sound of our voice understands that there is a honor in practicing law. There's a privilege in practicing medicine. Both of those professions have an opportunity to bring a great deal of comfort to their clients and patients. Both of those professions have, in and of itself, baked in a certain level of trust that the community automatically gives us just because we hold a title, just because we have a degree. And I think that it should be a fiduciary relationship from the professionals to the customers, to clients, and to the patients. And I don't think that that's there with a number of the law firms that we have investigated up to this point. And it's certainly not there in a number of the doctors and professionals that are providing medical care. And that bothers me. Doctors are supposed to do no harm. That's the first thing that they learn. That's the first oath that they take once they have passed the medical boards. Conversely, lawyers have a fiduciary duty. That is a duty of care to stand into the shoes of your client. And that's not even enough. You have to go beyond that. You have to put them above your concerns. That's how much you're supposed to look out for your client. They're not doing that when they set them up for needless surgeries that will affect them 10, 12, 15 years down the line. If you operate on a perfectly good spine, what is inevitably going to happen is there will be injury to that spine. This is not just let's put a steel or an aluminum cage, a pedicle screw aluminum cage around the spine. They are actually causing damage. They have to hammer in and damage the good spine by putting in those medical devices that end up hurting them. That's enough. But it's not all that happens there. In 10 years, especially if you are a person that engages in physical activity, such as sports, or you have manual labor in your future, that will wear on that now damaged spine such that it will damage the levels that are before it and after you have operated, before and after. So if you have an operation on L3 L4 and L2 will inevitably be affected. And in 10 years, they will have to be addressed. That's just what happens to the levels above and beneath. The pedicle screws that are placed in to hold that cage in place, they will work their way out. Who's going to go in and replace those pedicle screws for the patient, for the client? I guarantee you, the lawyer's not going to look for a subsequent surgical procedure to help the client. The doctor's not going to do the surgical procedure for free 15 years down the line. That patient, that client is on his or her own, and that's just not right, Kristin.
A lot of this, I think, I don't think I know, Kirk, comes down to right and wrong.
It sure does.
This
And whether you
whole
have a
case,
conscious,
all of this comes down to right and wrong.
it does. And you know, if you don't have a conscience in life, I guess you can do those things to the individuals that you're supposed to be protecting. But in that right or wrong that you talk about, it affects you and me. It affects the citizens that are in New York State and New York City. Most of this is happening in New York City where the construction is going on. So it will affect them because each and every time that the insurance company has to pay these high judgments or these high settlements, these expensive settlements, every time they have to do that, that money is coming from someplace. Right now, it's coming from the insurance company. But the insurance companies, they're going to raise their premiums. Right. So every time that someone has to have a new home built, or they have to build Section 8 homes or houses, that cost is not going to the insurance company alone. It's going to them to some degree, but it's really being passed off to the folks who live in New York City and in New York State.
What do you want to say about collaboration? How important that is at this point for everybody who is feeling the effects of this fraud, and letting them know it's okay to fight back. It's okay to tell your insurer, if you're a contractor who you have a fake claim, you should be telling your insurer what, Kirk? What should you be telling them? Do you say, you know what, fine, just pay it out? Or do you say, no, we need to fight this?
No, we need to fight it, and here's why. We want to send a message that it's not all right, that we don't just want to pay this one and move on down the line. Number one, when a company decides to do that, they are just like you and me. When we have an accident, whether it's our fault or not, in our automobile accident or in an automobile accident where we have to pay out to repair our car, I guarantee you, the next year you will be paying more for your auto insurance. They call that the premiums that you pay. Well, that's going to happen to these guys who have their concrete business, general contractors, steel businessmen. They will have to pay higher in their premiums the following year. And you know what happens if they have a second incident, for us, accident? Now the insurance company or the pool that they qualified for because they had a good track record, they have to go to another pool, which is typically maybe a company that doesn't have the same reputation or share the same reputational environment that the original company that you were able to occupy does, which means your premiums across the board go up, no matter your history. Now you have to deal with being in that category, in the B level, where you were really occupying the A level. So you should never want or never expect that it's okay to pay for something that you know has fraudulent behavior associated with it, because it's just not your fault and it will come back to bite you.
And it hurts everything. It hurts everybody. So I know you said earlier, Kirk, today, when you when you settle so quickly, rather than telling your insurer to fight it, you are hurting everybody who is trying to make this better, who is trying to stop this from happening. And it will come back to hurt your business. And so, look, I definitely want to see insurers, not tradesmen. Tradesmen is out there fighting the good fight. But some of these big insurers, they have to stop settling, because if they just keep doing this, we're going to keep in this cycle. And it really starts with the contractors, trying. I'm not saying they're successful all the time. The insurers can still come back and say, we don't care what you say. We're gonna do it. I've heard those stories before as well. But at least try to fight it. Try to just not roll over anymore.
Yeah, and sometimes it's scary to do that. You might feel like, well, if I do that, the insurance company's not going to want me, and then they'll push me out to another company, and I don't want to do that. I want to stay with this company. You can't do that. You have to stand up and request, listen, we know this is fraud. I invested in cameras. That's one of the things that we try to get the general contractors, subcontractors to do. I invested in these cameras. I'm finding that some of these accidents, these unwitnessed accidents, are straight up fraud, out and out fraud. You want to make sure that your insurance company doesn't make a business decision which just suits them. You want to make sure that the insurance company is doing something that's in your best interest and saving your dollars, your premium dollars, and your reputation, because the reputation comes right back to you, not necessarily the insurance company. And you know what? Good insurance companies will listen. Good insurance companies will say, yeah, now it's time for us to take a stand. We, as a business model, because we have this national breadth of premiums that's coming in from all over, we can withstand this and chalk this up to a business litigation cost that we could absorb. But let's ask them. Let's look at the piece of pie that we are under. Let's look at the where the sun is shining for us, or not shining, depending on how your day is going, or your month, or your year is going, as it relates to this fraud. But let's look at it that way, and please, please, please help us help you, because we will be more proactive in reporting to you, in particular, understanding and appreciating what some of the fraud cues and indicators are, so that we can be your eyes and ears. If you help us, we'll help you, and we can stomp this thing out. It's an attitudinal change. The attitude has to change. It's not one of these where sometimes you hear family members say, oh, let's pick our battles as it relates to the alcoholic in the family. No, you don't pick your battle. You say, listen, the kids don't need to see this. Let's move forward. Let's give them an opportunity to seek treatment, stop this mess. Let's move forward in a positive way. And when you do that, it may be hard initially, but everyone's happier during the Christmas time. Everyone's happier during, I love Thanksgiving. Everyone's happier during the Thanksgiving months or the Thanksgiving holidays, because we did what was tough as a family. We addressed it. We may not have always been happy with each other, but we were always on the same page. You don't have to be singing in harmony to be on the same page. We want to be on the same, we want to be on the same, in the same book, in the same chapter, but also on the same page as it relates to handling this fraud.
Last question. Looking forward with the RICOs, I know you mentioned you have more coming. What else can we expect?
You can expect that there are going to be some up and down moments. When you are going before the court is in charge of, and that's why we love federal court. That's why we have said that we don't mind that the federal courts take their time to make the decisions. We don't mind that the U.S. Attorney's Office take their times to make their decisions as it relates to what they will do in terms of prosecution on the criminal side of things. We're on the civil side of things. So what we want to do is tell the folks that are listening, there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. What a federal court judge does is call balls and strikes. They don't interject themselves on the feelings of the case as they see it. They make sure that the procedural matters are met. They make sure that the substantive matters are pled appropriately, and they meld those two together. And when both sides are ready to present their case to the jury, they will then say, come together, guys, we'll get a jury here, and the jury will listen to all of the facts, all of the evidence, and the jury will make the decision on who's right, who's wrong, is there a RICO or not. And we are confident that we're going to be able to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not the standard. It is by preponderance of the evidence, but we're going with reasonable doubt. And we are that confident with what we're seeing and what we're finding.
Boy, I cannot wait to see these things go to trial. I really do. As someone who has covered trials for 25 years, you know, Kirk, this is where everything comes out. It's where you get to really see how things are working and witnesses. And it's a true the beauty of our system, right? The judicial system is on full display. And I really do hope that we will get to that point. Kirk Willis. Kirk Willis, CEO of the Willis Law Group. I know you're expanding fast. You guys are working so hard, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. And thank you for having me, Kristin.
It's great.